Welcome to the webinar, Maximize Your Wheelchair Reimbursements, your guide to thriving in a competitive bidding and managed care world. First, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Randy Rosen. He's the Vice President of Training at Drive Medical, and he brings with him 25 plus years of industry experience. Since joining Drive, Randy has held several executive positions. And prior, he was the founder and president of Nationwide MedX, a privately held medical products company located in Brooklyn, New York, which was acquired by Drive in 2004. Randy has held management positions and won awards with both publicly held and privately owned home health care providers. Now I give the presentation over to Randy.
Thanks, David. Let me begin by welcoming all of you to this wheelchair reimbursement webinar. I would like to begin by listing the topics we'll be covering during this webinar. The first topic is we'll be discussing your sales mix. The next topic is when are wheelchairs covered by Medicare? Then we'll go into the different qualifications for the wheelchairs between K1s, K2s, K3s, and K4s. And then we'll get next into the very profitable what accessories can be reimbursed. And then we'll be discussing a new calculator tool that Drive Medical has put together, Drive's Reimbursement Calculator, which will show you how you can really maximize profits and bring value to the wheelchair business by looking at each chair that you do and adding the appropriate and the covered accessories and how much more that will maximize your profits. We'll then discuss some financing that can be used to create incremental monthly income, where we can make you cash positive on the first month that you put out one of these wheelchairs. Let's begin. Okay, so what is your wheelchair sales mix? At Drive Medical, we surveyed our largest customers, and we came up with some analytics of wheelchair sales. And we came to the conclusion that 50% of most of your wheelchair business will be in standard wheelchairs, 30% would be in lightweight wheelchairs, and 20% would be in bariatric chairs. Along with that, half of all of your sales should be in accessories. So that's actually incremental growth should be in accessories. Your wheelchair business is your core referral business, what you're getting from the hospital referrals from your physicians. But you should be able to add 50% more dollars in revenue if you add the appropriate accessories. And at Drive, we put together some sales tools to make it very simple and easy for you to do that, which I'll be showing you later on in this webinar. Okay, the first basics we want to go through is just standard wheelchair eligibility. What a customer or a patient needs as part of the diagnosis so that they qualify for Medicare to reimburse you for a wheelchair. The first and the most part is the impaired ability to participate in mobility-related activities of daily living, more commonly known as MRADLs. Those include ambulation, transfers, toileting, feeding, dressing, grooming, and bathing. So if your patient has an impaired ability in any one of those functions, they would qualify for at least the standard wheelchair. Then you have to look at, can that be resolved by use of a cane or walker? Also, can the patient's home provide adequate access between the rooms for the wheelchair? And will the wheelchair improve their ability to participate in these activities? The patient also has to be willing to use their wheelchair, and they will also have to have at least one of these diagnoses, that they have sufficient upper extremity function needed to safely self-propel, or has a caregiver who is able to provide assistance with the wheelchair. Those are the basic eligibility requirements for wheelchairs. Once you get past the standard wheelchair, you will start going into K2s, K3s, K4s, or K7 wheelchairs, which all stem from those basic diagnoses. Once you pass that and you go from a K1 into a K2, on a K2 chair, the patient would need to have what's known as Hemi Positioning on the wheelchair. You would need to lower the chair closer to the ground from basics of 17.5 inches to 15.5 inches, so the patient can use their feet to self-propel. They're not able to propel the chair safely with their upper body, so they would then use what's known as heel strikes. They would sit back in the chair and use their heels to self-propel that wheelchair. So that would qualify them for a K2 wheelchair. Once you go up from that, you would go to the K3 wheelchair. The first thing is that the patient has some upper body extremity weakness, or even lower body extremity weakness if they're using their feet to self-propel, where they cannot propel a wheelchair that weighs more than 46 pounds. But they can safely propel a wheelchair that weighs 36 pounds. That would then qualify them for the lightweight wheelchair. Once you're past the K3 chair and you go into the K4 wheelchair, on the K4 chair, you would qualify for a K4 wheelchair. The patient must have the above criteria, which is all those other diagnoses, and they also must spend a minimum of 2 hours a day in a wheelchair, and they need to have either a seat width, depth, or height that cannot be accommodated in a standard wheelchair. So when you get to the K4 wheelchairs, a lot of these chairs have angle back adjustability, or seat depth adjustability, or seat width adjustability, where they cannot find that in just a common K3 chair. You're into a more sophisticated chair on the K4, and the chair weighs, and they have to be able to propel a chair that weighs less than 34 pounds or less. So that would qualify you into what's known as a K4, or a high-strength lightweight wheelchair. After that, you go into things like bariatric wheelchairs, where the patient weighs more than 300 pounds and needs a seat width that's either 20 inches or wider. Here at Drive, we stock chairs that go as wide as 30 inches wide and 700-pound weight capacity. So once you're up into the K7 chairs, those chairs you will qualify based on their hip size and width and their weight capacities. Okay. The next I'd like to talk about is on the order forms that we have on drivemedical.com. We're going to go through how to access these on our wheelchair focus page to our website, and I'm going to show you that a little bit later on. Right here, though, we have the wheelchair eligibility forms. So what we did is we put together an order form, and on the back of the order form, I just went through with you the eligibility requirements. All these requirements, as you can see on the screen, are printed right here, right on the back of the form. So as you choose the proper order form for the proper wheelchair you're looking for, based on the K code of the chair, and then you would find which Drive product meets that need, you would then look at the next slide, or on, if you printed them out, the back of the page, and that would give you all those requirements I just went through with you, along with all the accessories that the patient can use for the chair, and eligibility requirements for each and every one of those products. So now let's briefly hit on the most commonly used accessories that will make up that all-important 50% of incremental growth that you're looking for. These will differ depending on the specific wheelchair your patient qualifies for. The following criteria shows what is needed to qualify for each of those all-important accessories. Let's discuss seat and back cushions, an E2601 and an E2611. That's a general use seat cushion and a general use back cushion, and they are covered for a patient who has a manual wheelchair which meets Medicare coverage criteria. So all the chairs that you send out, or I would say 80 to 90% of the chairs you send out, the patient already has qualified for the seat and back, and that's just incremental growth. And when we get to the calculator, you'll see how many dollars get added based on which accessory you pick. The next accessory I'd like to speak about is the adjustable arms, the E0973. Adjustable height arms are covered if the patient requires an arm height that is different than what's available using non-adjustable arms, and the patient spends at least 2 hours per day in the wheelchair. So if the patient's in the chair and you have given them the seat and back cushion and you have raised the patient up, their arms are not going to comfortably rest on the armrest any longer. So then you're able to add the E0973, the adjustable arms, to the wheelchair and bill for that, because you have to raise the arms because you've raised the patient up. The next accessory, most commonly used, is our elevating legs, the E0990. These are covered if the patient has a musculoskeletal condition or the presence of a cast or brace which prevents 90-degree flexion at the knee, or if the patient has significant edema of the lower extremities that requires an elevating leg rest, or the patient meets the criteria for and has a reclining back on the wheelchair. So this is very common if your patient needs to have his legs elevated because of swelling or edema. They qualify, and you're able now to bill elevating leg rests. Another safety feature is the safety belt, the E0978, which is really a seat belt, and it's covered if the patient has weak upper body muscles, upper body instability, or muscle spasticity, which requires use of the item for proper seating and positioning. Boy, that was a tongue twister. The other items for safety are the E0971 anti-tippers, which are required for safety to prevent the wheelchair from tipping backwards, resulting in the user injury. The E0961, which are wheel lock extensions. Those are used if you gave the patient a seat cushion and you've raised them up, and now you've put adjustable height arms on and you've raised those up, and now the patient can't reach the wheel lock. So it allows the wheelchair user to independently operate the wheelchair locks due to upper extremity weakness, decreased range of motion, or hemiplegia. And then the last accessory of the most commonly used accessories are the E0951 heel loops. They're required to maintain the wheelchair user's feet safely on the foot plates, and it reduces injury by preventing their feet from being caught in the front casters, and they're required to maintain proper lower extremity alignment while using the wheelchair. There are many other accessories that are available, such as oxygen holders and that type of product, but these are the most commonly used, and these will go to make up that extra 50% incremental growth that you're looking for. The order forms are easily accessible on the drivemedical.com website under the service section. You just scroll down till you find the wheelchair tools section, and you will be able to find these order forms. There are two ways of using these order forms. One is in-house with your customer service reps. You can just print out these order forms. On the front are easy-to-read check boxes that your customer service rep can go through with the referral source over the telephone and just pick out by checking off which box for the particular item or accessory that the patient is eligible for. Or you can actually print these out and bring these to your referral source, and the secretary there can go through with the doctor, and they can look at the order form, and also with check boxes just run through this form and see which items and accessories that the patient will qualify for. And if they're not sure, of the qualifications for any of these particular accessories, like I had gone through previously on this webinar, they can just flip these over and go to the back page, and there will give them all the different eligibility requirements for each particular accessory. Let's discuss the tools you can use to see how to maximize your profits. You need to begin at the drivemedical.com website. You go into the services section and then scroll down, and you will see the wheelchair reimbursement tools. You will click on that, and this will bring you up to all the new wheelchair tools we've been discussing. The first tool you can look at is the top one, is the order forms. You click on the top offering, and here are all the order forms. You scroll down and you will see all the eligibility requirement charts behind each of the order forms, and you could pick out the chairs that you use, or you can print them all and have the full selection of products. Now you would move back and go to the second offering, which is our calculator, what we call the wheelchair HCPC code calculator. If you have your own drivemedical.com sign-on and you put that on the website, this will bring up your pricing. So to use this calculator, you start under the title HCPCs, which is the HCPC codes. You go to the drop-down box, very simple to use, and you'll see you have all the different K codes as the drop-down. So let's say we want to use the K3. You go down and select the K3 chair, and then a new drop-down box appears next to it under Family, and then you pull that down, and we have the Cruiser 3. So we select that, and then that gives you the next drop-down box, and you pull down the drop-down box, and that gives you every configuration of a K3 wheelchair that drives stocks. You can order any one of these. So to see what happens, you click on the first one, and that will then bring up a series of drop-down boxes. And one at a time you will go through these and add the accessory that you want. So if you want to add a seat cushion, you go down and you look at the 2 seat cushions we offer, and you pick one. And when you pick that, you will notice that it will give you a cost of the item, and next to it the reimbursement amount that Medicare will pay you. You then go down to the next box and pick out, let's say you want to add a back cushion. You select the back cushion. That also brings you up the price, the cost for the item, and the reimbursement. And we move through it, go down to anti-tippers, and you'll see on the anti-tippers how much that they cost and the reimbursement. And keep moving down. We go to wheel locks, the same. The seatbelt, the same. We go down to heel loops. What you will notice a little bit different on heel loops is that there is $0 under the pricing, under the cost. That's because these come with the chair, but they are still billable. And they are billable under that EO951 code, and it will give you that reimbursement. We continue down with the adjustable arms. And that also comes with the chair, the adjustable height arms, and it is billable. And we can end up with the elevating legs, which if we wanted to, we actually selected a chair with footrests, and on this chair we want to now add the elevating legs. So that also has a reimbursement and a different level price. You would then go up to the top and hit calculate, and you will notice that the first month reimbursement, since most of the accessories are billed as purchases, you would get $752.59 for your first month reimbursement of this wheelchair. And you will notice down at the bottom in yellow, this has cost you $237.85. This wheelchair in this configuration with all these accessories. You can then look at this and say, well, I do 12 wheelchairs a month. So you would go into the number of patients, add 12, move back to calculate, click your calculate button, and you will notice that your reimbursement has gone up to $23,047.08 for the total of these wheelchairs. So each of the chairs would cost you $237.85. You'd have to multiply that out by 12 for your cost, but your total reimbursement would be the $23,000. So you can see how adding just a few accessories, and the most commonly used and commonly prescribed accessories, can maximize your dollars from going from $122 cost for just the chair and your 13-month cap reimbursement of the $988 to $1,920 for this wheelchair, as opposed to with a cost of $237. This is easily, you can see how you can maximize your profits and your dollars by adding these accessories. Now that you've seen our wheelchair sales tools, which will help you maximize your profit, we have one more tool at Drive. We have our Drive financing through our CFO, our cash flow options division. We now offer a 0% for 12 months lease, which can make you cash flow positive within 2 months on a Viper Plus GT wheelchair. All you need to do is contact your Drive Territory Business Manager for details. This concludes the presentation portion of our webinar. I would like to thank you for your time and now open up the presentation for your questions.